So, all the way from Manchester in the UK, joining me today is vocalist, guitarist, and Raging Bear management artist Ashley Sherlock. Welcome to Australia and welcome to the Rockpit, Ash. How are you, my friend?
Oh, very well. Thank you for having me.
Absolute pleasure. So, a lot of the Rockpit viewers, certainly here in Australia, possibly wouldn't know who you are.
Mhm.
Um, so, can we just start by, telling us a little bit about yourself? Where did music begin with you and at what age?
Well, I must have been, I recall getting my first guitar when I was about 8, I think. And this was like a classical instrument, which was a gift from my uncle and auntie around Christmas time. But my cousin got the same one. And I remember us both kind of opening these guitars, which were just kind of like, there's always guitars around the house, so you kind of like look at it and you're like, I can't play this. And I remember at the time my uncles and my dad were all kind of jamming out on these guitars that were effectively bought for us. But he's always been, especially my dad was a player, not like a professional, but he'd just play every day, so singing as well. So it just became a normal thing to like play and sing. So when I got to like age 11, I really got heavily into like Guns N' Roses, and then wanted to just basically just be Slash. So then learned to play. It wasn't until I went to college I learned to sing, and then started writing songs from there. Really, so
For
yeah,
sure.
it's kind of sort of it.
Yeah, and I mean, I find that interesting when you say that your dad was more or less just a hobbyist and played for himself.
For sure.
From what you heard, I mean, what were obviously his influences in his playing, and what were your earliest musical influences? I know you mentioned Guns N' Roses, but what was
Oh
played at
yeah.
home, and what melodies were stuck in your head when you first picked up the guitar?
Well, for me, like as a kid growing up, there was Mark Knopfler and Dire Straits was always on. Like, and that's kind of. I mean, me and my dad have like a special sort of bond over that music because it was my dad's favorite. Mark Knopfler's my dad's guitar hero, and then obviously mine as well. So a lot of that, a lot of Rod Stewart, Brian Adams, um, things like the Eagles, AC/DC. Just kind of like classic dad rock. Um, that was kind of that. So obviously, when I turned 11, went to high school, a lot of my peers were into contemporary artists, and it just never really that just went over my head, and I was just kind of stuck in a time before, just listening to old rock stuff really. So it was just me and one other guy in a year that were kind of like heavily into dad rock, I guess.
So, based upon that, I mean, how much did your dad teach you, and did you actually become self-taught, I guess, in the process?
Mm. Yeah, yeah. It was strange really because I picked it up when I was, like I say, when I was like 8 or 9, and then I just kind of put it down for a couple of years after that, and kind of like going into high school. It teach me a handful of things, but I remember in particular there was the riff for Money for Nothing, that main kind of like
Yeah.
lead guitar part, and I was like, how do you play that? So he was like, I'll show you the first bit, and then you got to work it out. And I remember being so frustrated with him, but but it was really cool actually. Even though I never really thought about it, but to push me to want to just learn to do something. And then obviously you get the bug for it. You think, oh my God, I figured this out. Anything's possible. So I used to watch YouTube videos, and that was it, really. So never had a lesson.
Wow. You would not be able to tell. I mean, as far as what I've heard from the recordings and some of the live stuff I've seen, you
Mhm.
seem to have you could almost be an understudy for some of the greats, your Jeff Becks, your Buddy Guys, your those kinds of players. But what's also interesting too is that, and we'll touch on this a little bit later on, I see a big John Frusciante influence in your playing as well.
Yeah, I mean, like that was the Chili Peppers for me were the first real band that I discovered by myself. So up until there was obviously music around the house all the time, and being in primary school, there was the odd contemporary thing that you'd kind of like. I remember there was like at the time there was like a lot of Justin Timberlake kind of stuff that was around. Not necessarily, but like within my peers at school, a lot of like that contemporary pop music. Eminem, of course, was a huge one at the time. Um, but to kind of discover the Chili Peppers, and it was that melodic, and I described it all because you either love the Chili Peppers or you hate them.
Yeah.
And me and my bass player Nick are absolutely like obsessed. And I met John Frusciante recently, and it wasn't quite the meeting I kind of dreamt of, but it was wild. But yeah, it was just that musical, the simplicity, but the dynamic and the layering of the music, the harmonies, and not to mention the lyrics, which are just so far out, but like it means something in a way, and you kind of relates to a milestone in your life.
Yeah, I think we all have that. We all have that band or that artist that triggered and started something very, very special. And it's funny that you mentioned discovering something on your own. I mean, my musical journey was what I was fed as a child,
Hmm.
as far as what I listened to and what I began to appreciate. But it wasn't until I found a band that I could call my own that the love really evolved for
Hmm.
music. It's like these are my band, this is my band, this is their music, and this is what I love, and I love that kind of passion when you do find that artist. So, at what age did you first start releasing music?
Oh, I was pretty young. I know there's one thing that's still out there, and I mean I won't tell you what it is because I don't want you to go find it. But I was young, and it was we kind of re-released the track on our I think it was like 2020, maybe 2021 release. And what had inspired me to write a song, I'd always been singing, and it was that idea of like being able to accompany yourself as a guitar player, singer, because that's all my dad did. I remember being young in the bath, and he would get his guitar and sing, and that was kind of the condition that I would have a bath on the sense that he would sing while I'm having a bath because it was just so boring. I hated it. Um, so yeah, it was to kind of cut a long story short. My grandfather was diagnosed with cancer, so it was like I had all this pent up emotion, and it was kind of I never really thought about it, but it was just kind of the first thing that just kind of came out. It was a really easy song to write. It wasn't, and it just that was it. I was like, oh wow, and then people hear it, and then go, well, bloody hell, this is the first song you've ever written. I'm like, yep. Like, wow, like you've got a talent for that, perhaps. Pursue it. So I was like, oh, okay. So that was that, and you just, from that point on, getting into college early, and I remember going in. It was called Manchester Music Based, and there was I actually bumped into somebody last night who went, and we were talking about it, funnily enough, and it was such a really great place to go and thrive as a young artist. But it was, I remember every Monday morning we'd go into these rehearsal rooms and we'd get put into these bands, and these guys that I was with were, again, it was kind of like the infancy of kind of instrumentalists. There was no one that was like, okay, now this is like, no prodigies or anything. So it was kind of like all of this trying to decide the parts, and then everyone's playing it, butchering it, and everyone, we just never got on in that respect, musically at least. So I went to the tutor and I was like, how about I just come in on Mondays and just sit in a room by myself and practice and write? And they were like, what? Yeah, absolutely. So it was that kind of, from the beginning, I knew that that's what I took to be able to, if I wanted to take it seriously, I needed to dedicate that time to it.
And if we go back and visit and sort of preempt, there's a little bit that I skipped. You mentioned that you discovered to have your voice, I guess, so to speak, uh,
Right.
a few years after picking up the guitar. Who
Mhm.
do you model yourself, and who do you find yourself modeling, influencing? A young Ash vocally.
Well, I've gone through phases, certain obvious phases, and I laugh about it with my dad, and he's, oh God, do you remember that the Jeff Buckley thing, and like the Chili Peppers? Not necessarily trying to sing like Anthony Kiedis, because I wouldn't, as much as I think he's a wonderful singer, I wouldn't categorize him as, he's not in the same league as someone like Steven Tyler, for example. Um, just I have gone through cycles of musicians that I've really studied,
Hmm.
and it's been more obvious at certain times than others where my influences come from. But I suppose, as a young kid, it was a lot of like singer songwriter stuff, really. I mean, and then you've got like bands like Stereophonics. I was always obsessed with Kelly Jones
Yeah.
and his voice. I was never like a diehard fan, but it was like his voice on the certain songs, and I was like, that is. I understood that was emotion and raw enough to be able to convey feeling, opposed to being, somebody like a Justin Bieber or something, which was very technical as well. So
Yeah.
there was all kinds of musical influences. I couldn't really be any more specific than that without taking too much time to remember it.
And look, that's quite okay. I guess from my reference points, from what I picked up from listening to the album and the earlier EPs, I tend to hear, and it's funny you mentioned singer songwriters. I hear a lot of Americana in your voice. I hear Tom Petty. I hear Caleb Followill from Kings of Leon.
Mhm.
Um, in places, and obviously Jeff Buckley is a very relevant one, and I think that may come from some of the songwriting as well. It's just the way that you structure and deliver. Do you think they're fairly accurate sort of guidances from a listener's point of view?
Yeah, it depends, because I've said this to Danny and Nick for a long time, and this is kind of where we've decided to turn it on its head for this new release, which we're kind of in the process of. Is we've never really been able to be pigeonholed in terms of, you hear a lot of bands and you go, well, he plays guitar just like Steve Ray Vaughan, for example, or he sings just like Paul Rodgers. There's bands that I can think of uh, immediately certainly on the UK scene that would come to mind when I say that. So, but we've never really been able to been pigeonholed, which um, is a strange one. And it wasn't until like we discovered, just by playing on the same circuit. There was a band called Jailer. Right, and then there's quite a clear Led Zeppelin influence there with that, which is great, and they're doing it, the young kids, and they're killing it, But it was that specific moment, and other bands similar. It's like, well, there's lots of bands that are doing really well, that are taking their influence, but making it a little bit more prominent and putting it at the forefront of their music.
Yeah.
So to which I said to Danny and Nick, I was like, well, me and Nick love the Peppers.
Yeah.
So we're gonna kind of try and just bring that influence a little bit more to the forefront. So then, because effectively in a rock and roll outfit, you got bands like Dirty Honey and stuff. It's a nostalgic feel for a lot of
Yes.
people, and you are marketing and selling that nostalgia, to a degree. So it's just kind of adding a string to the bow, and this is something I spoke to Sean about, because it's all very well and good being able to not be pigeonholed, and it's like, oh well, stick it to the man, and we're just going to be ourselves, and
Yeah.
yeah, like, but there's a certain element of marketing being able to be sellable.
Yeah.
And we've done well with the merchandise and everything that we've managed to achieve thus far in the career that we've had. It's been a dream come true. Some of the brands that we've got to work with, some of the gigs we've played with, the people we've met. If I was to quit today, I'd be super happy with that. But moving forward, and especially we kind of we want to take ourselves out of this blues circuit. You
Yeah.
know, we feel it's quite outside the confines of that because it is quite a restricted environment to be in as a band. Because once you play one festival, especially in the UK, you can go and play, and that's nothing against the promoter. We work with him very closely. He's our agent, but you play in like Cornwall rather, and then you go and play in Scotland,
Yeah.
and it's the same heads that will travel, and it has quite a religious and loyal fan base. But to branch out to the wider audiences, and Danny was like, well, why couldn't we go down the Sam Fender route
Yeah.
opposed to,
Yeah.
you know, um,
Yeah. Wow.
someone more of a traditional bluesy feel because it does feel rather limited, just based on what we've seen, at least. And maybe that's just the way we perceive it, but
See
yeah.
it, yeah, the way you see it and feel it at the moment. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm.
It's interesting when you sort of say that. I think there is a beauty about not being able to be pigeonholed, but I think it's also um, I think there's an element of mystery and excitement around that too, because you until you really dive in, you don't really know what you're going to get, and that I think that element of mystery and diversifying of flavors is always a very handy trick to
Sure.
keep up your sleeve. It kind of keeps people on their toes, and as you say, I guess it does make sense to want to move out of a designated blues scene into a broader scene.
Sure. I mean, I use the example of like Eric Clapton. He in the '65, the Blues Breakers album, that was like revolutionary and changed everything. But you look further down his career, he did eventually go a little bit more pop.
Mm.
In
Oh, he
his kind
evolved. He evolved
of,
completely. Yeah,
for sure. Dire Straits again when they came out in '77,
yeah,
that clean guitar tone that was in the height like the punk thing. In to then go and there's obviously Mark Knopfler again, not much of a singer per se, but he did exactly what was needed to be done, and he nailed it. He was one of the best musicians and songwriters I've ever seen live, and certainly of my favorite ever.
yeah,
So but he's taking something and just being able to evolve with it. And our first album, I think, it was certainly reminiscent. I mean, I try to kind of emulate my influences, like someone like Jason Isbell. The lyrics that he uses, it's more than just a song. The way he would write something and kind of convey it. Chris Stapleton again, more
yeah,
poppy,
yeah,
but again, his lyrics, and you want to be able to write a song that's at least means something to you, and then I think that's a little bit more. It's easier to kind of convey that emotion when you're trying to record that and ultimately sell it to people.
yeah. Absolutely. Now we're talking about the Just the Name album that came out in
Mhm.
2023 via Rough Records. How did you come to work with Rough Records, and how did that signing come about? What preempted that?
He reached out to me once. I'd sent him a handful of emails. As you do when you're like an unsigned artist, you reach out to any relevant label and just bombard them. And I'm not sure if it was through that or through somebody else. He called me and said, just really randomly, we've had someone couldn't make a spot on the Blues Caravan tour, and can I do it? Can I fly out tomorrow? I was like, are you mental? I'm like, no, I can't fly out tomorrow. Um, like I had commitments, and I mean, we had a big show with Chris Barris, I believe, at the time, which was at one of our big venues in Manchester, which was kind of like a bucket list. So there was no way I was going to miss that. I said I can't do it. Next year, let's do it. And but obviously following up from that and just being incredibly persistent in my approach to just, hey, you asked about me. Yes, it was short notice, but you must have heard or liked something. And Thomas was very complimentary of the sound. The song in question that he heard was one of our heavier tunes, which surprised me given his history of his roster.
Yeah,
Um, but yeah, it was kind of it was all very shiny and new, and having a record label with like real artists that I was a fan of that were on there or certainly had been on there. and flying out to Germany and going to tour, other territories, which was just it was kind of like bottom of the list of things that we could do because it was just seemed so impossible.
Yeah.
So to do that, it was just such a life-changing experience. I ended up meeting a girlfriend on that tour. We were together for a year, I think it was. The distance just made it impossible, but still, it was a good year, but it was just so many things that came of it, that was
Yeah.
just so. I learned German on the back of meeting this girl. Don't have German lessons anymore, but yeah, it was really wonderful, and I mean, it was off the back of that, but I kind of delved into I and Thomas will tell you this, but I mean, I had a bit of an issue coming off the back of that tour. Then for like the remainder of the year and a half, I kind of a bit of a substance problem. So I needed to sort that out, and that I became I kind of, without going into too much thing, it was just a bit of a bad place to be in. So I'm a year and a bit sober now, and yeah, I feel better than ever, and excited to do it again, and on our own back.
Now, if we go back to the recording of Just a Name, I mean, the two EPs prior to that, had that allowed you to sort of hone in your studio and your recording skills, and you made you a little bit more in control of what you wanted and how you did it? Now, the album, if I'm correct, was recorded only in 4 days. Is that right?
Correct. Yeah. So this is the thing, and I listened back to the album, and I actually messaged Sean about it. Because on one of the tracks, I heard a a mistake, an editing mistake, and once I heard it, it was like I don't know how I missed it at the time. We were under a lot of pressure to get the album out, but whereas regarding the two EPs, we had all the time in the world, and it was and those two EPs, in my opinion, are a lot better produced and more shiny and glistening and more professional than say that album. And the idea with the album, our brief from Thomas was keep it raw.
Yeah.
So that was, and Danny kind of my drummer kind of made the decision to kind of override everybody, including me, about what I wanted to do. And he was like, right, we're gonna play it live and then reamp the guitars. But the problem in doing that was the dynamics, at least for me, and the guitar tone just completely went out the window. So there's certain bits that I hear and I think, Jesus, like, what happened there? And it's just, but it worked, I guess. And there was some really, really nice reviews, and no one's ever said anything negative about it. But when I hear it, it sounds rushed to me.
I mean, yeah, it's funny you say that, but when I read that it was recorded over a period of 4 days, it just blew my mind. I mean, there is a certain energy to that record that I absolutely love, and the songs themselves are just magnificent. But where I really have fallen in love with you and your music was the couple of songs that are on the Blues Caravan album from 2023 as well. My God, you live are insane. I cannot stop playing Ohio and Dear Elizabeth from that recording. Those versions are simply stunning.
Well, Sean, I'll tell you the problem we've had with that recently.
Oh, really?
We're trying to get that taken off the Spotify. That went on without nobody's permission.
Oh,
I
wow.
hate it. And that was in the height of my lack of sobriety, and turning up to the venue 6 weeks in a tour, and that I remember it was recorded in. I want to say it was at Piano. The venue was called Piano, but I'm not sure if that was in Stuttgart, perhaps, or I forget where it was. And we turned up. My amp blew up, and one of the other guitar players' amp blew up.
Oh, no.
And obviously, we load into a venue after driving however many hours it was, and you want to sound check, but all the time while you're trying to sound check, you've got Thomas and his crew trying to set up this live recording thing. And I was aware that that was going to be the recorded day, but I'd had a conversation because I was aware that these kind of live Blues Caravan albums will appear on the artists' profiles.
Oh, yeah.
I said to Thomas, this was a conversation in Austria. I was like, listen, dude, I don't want that. Not because, I mean, it just, my voice was shot. We were all tired. You can hear it. I mean, the guitar tone, I don't know what the fuck's going on with that. But it was just, I hate that with a passion. I remember waking up and having our manager at the time sent it to me. And it had kind of been uploaded to Spotify because they had all our logins and everything. And I was just there like, what the fuck is this? I was fuming with it. And so I appreciate the kind words, honestly, but hopefully that's not going to be on there too. So record the songs or something.
Yeah, I'm
just
gonna have to back them up now.
yeah, man, that has been a real
Oh wow,
sticking point and a sore topic for us for a long time.
yeah,
I hate it.
yeah.
Yeah. Sorry to tell you that, but
That's all right. That's okay. That's quite okay. There's always a rhyme and a reason behind everything. Now, the Rockpit also reviewed Just a Name in late 2023, and we gave it a 9.5 out of 10.
yeah.
What was your reaction to getting an international review like that? I'm sure it wasn't the first international review to rate you so well.
Yeah, so it was the weird thing with that, it was all to do with the PR that we used. And we'd gone down the route of Peter Noble. Peter is typically more of a I think he was the right guy for that particular album. And obviously we were in classic rock and guitarist magazine and magazines that I'd buy as a kid. So I have a stack this high of the ones that I was in and collected them. But it was really interesting to kind of, especially to go to like Australia and see this, because there's certain kind of publications that you would get in that would kind of copy and paste the generic PR thing that they get sent, just maybe yeah.
The spiel
So,
you get sent and
yeah, which I'm sure is industry standard, but obviously to the review that we got, and it's so highly, out of all the reviews we got, they were all kind of ballpark 8 9s, but to get that, it was wonderful, and it was interesting, just to see because obviously never been to Australia, you don't know what the scene's like, but for the music to have travelled that far at least, and to be in a review, for someone to review it, it was crazy, So we were delighted with it.
absolutely. And was on the back of that, obviously, Sean Bennett is your manager. Raging Bear Management is your management representation. Was this what started, the whole conversation with Sean to take you under his wing?
Yeah, just give me 1 second. I need to rush out of the room. Yeah, so it was through his a mutual friend, a gent called Greg, and Greg, yeah, who looks after Parker Barrow, and we got offered a show from to support those guys when they were on their run, and we'll say yes to everything. We'll play anywhere, Yeah. So we're like, yeah, shoot, let's do it. And obviously I think they're Nashville based, and we love their sound, and just it was kind of, I'd actually gone to Greg originally because I was really impressed at how he'd managed to kind of orchestrate their whole tour or plan whilst he was in another country as well. And I was really impressed with that. I was like, hang on, so you don't actually need a manager to be in the UK. So I'd gone to Greg, and we had a lengthy chats, and he was, if I recall correctly, he was very impressed with our work ethic and our drive and our passion towards what we do. And then Sean enters, and then he was like, well, let me introduce you to, and then it was like me and Sean kind of spoke, and off the back of what I'd kind of gone to Greg for, really. And obviously he introduced himself, and I was like, oh, of course, like I remember the review, of course, I'd had it actually on my phone in like an open tab from way back when, and which was
Wow.
kind of spooky that he was just still there.
Yeah, yeah,
And we just got talking, and we wanted someone who was ultimately that could just kind of had the same drive as us, and Sean's done us a huge favor recently, which is he didn't have to do, and he's helped us out massively, and we're just very grateful for him and yeah, all of his hard work. So yeah, it's been a perfect fit.
yeah. He's a great human, and I know that anything that he puts himself into, he gives all of himself in. So
Sure.
and I guess it's also got to be handy too, knowing that he has a background of the UK and an understanding of the scene to a certain degree, and the lay of the land. So you got the best of both worlds, I guess. Someone who's giving you has the opportunity to grow you in different markets, but also understands your own market very, very clearly.
Yeah, and I think just with what he does with the Rockpit, and it's I've come to learn, like in this industry, it's who you know with these things, like, and it's trying to knock down doors and trying to just persistently put yourself in the realm of where all these things are happening. It's and he is somebody who can get us into that, get us into the bigger rooms. And I've said from the beginning, I firmly believe that our songs and our musicianship is certainly good enough to be able to sell whatever we're trying to sell. But what we don't necessarily have all the time is the knowledge of getting into these rooms with people. How do we sell ourselves? And I mean, his emails, the way I email, we had a back and forth email, and his email was a lot nicer than mine was going to be regarding somebody else, some other business. So he was like, thank God for that, because if I'd have said what I'd have said, I probably would have been sacked. So he's a very, very kind and generous, loving man, where I'm a bit like, I'm just fed up of all the bullshit, So I'm really grateful for him.
Yeah, yeah, fantastic. Now, obviously, 2023 to 2026 is a big opportunity to write lots of new music, and I'm assuming that there is a new album on the way.
Yes, sir.
How far are we into that, and how far away is it?
Well, so the short answer is it's halfway done, and we're super excited. Having again with that Chili Peppers influence, we've got like harmony guitar parts on things. I mean, that makes it sound like proper rock, but it's really not. Just like little bits, like kind of like sitting under the main bit, and kind of it's just all tying together. But Thomas said to us that we are supposed to go on this blues caravan this year, and then without going into too much detail, it was like nope. So I was like okay. And to be fair, I hadn't done anything wrong. I was all geared up for it, and he just basically decided to go with another artist, which was absolutely fine. But he was then like, oh, well, let's stop production on this album and let's concentrate on selling more units, because he's very much a businessman, which is absolutely great, fair enough. And I was like, no, I'm not waiting any longer. We've started this record on the basis of he was supposed to be finished for this Blues Caravan run, but we're not going to stop doing it. So we're just going to keep going. So when he does come back and say, I mean, our plan is to get it out in November.
Fantastic, absolutely fantastic. Do we have a working title or any idea? Is it all too early to call at this stage?
Oh man, I've been thinking about this for days, weeks even, and there's certainly a theme with this album. Whereas I think with like a lot of debut albums, the theme or the songs could be you have forever to write it, of course. So there's songs that are just years old. Where this album's all been written. Well, to be fair, a lot of these songs are written during that album time anyway. I'm quite proficient in the respect that I'm not one of those artists that writes every day, but I certainly have to be in a particular mood or have a particular emotion flying around that will prompt me to write something. But usually the songs that are written we keep them. You know, I'm not one of those artists that will write every day and out of the 7 songs a week, keep 2 of them.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
so but maybe that's something I need to work on. But I mean, again, I'm listening to a lot of Jason Isbell. It's the lyrics for me. It's perhaps the wordplay sometimes, or that's kind of where what I like to kind of, you know, I'd like to think my lyrics are good, you know, in that way, you know, and not just generic pop. But yeah, regarding working titles, I have a few in mind, but I don't want to come out and say it now and then come back in November and be like, what the hell was that? So
That's understandable. Perfectly understandable.
Yeah.
And you know, I guess you almost answered my next question was, you know, how prolific are you at writing? And I guess if we take that to a different level, you sort of touched on you wanting your lyrics to be, you know, one of the main focal points. How do you write? Do you write melody, then lyrics, or do you have song structures and then you find words to work around structures? How do you generally find yourself writing?
I saw an interview with Chris Stapleton, and he kind of explained this, and he would just kind of fool around with something until something kind of strikes. You know, I suppose it's quite a toxic trait, but I have to be feeling like a pretty emotional way to be able to want to do that.
Yeah.
I can never write songs. So if I have a good day, like the idea of songwriting is not even on the list of things to do. You know, so it's typically an emotional period, a breakup perhaps, or a you know, a lot of this album, like I said, I was drinking really heavily, and a lot of these songs were like 4 a.m. You know, after 10 pints kind of songs. But I liked them and they stayed, and I'd send them to Danny, but I'd send him like one version and then send him another one and then send him another one.
Yeah.
So by the time he wakes up at 8, he's got like 7 voice notes to listen to. So then I'd be like, no, just listen to the last one. Don't worry about it. You know?
Yeah.
But it's it's fine. But yeah, I suppose that's quite like a toxic trait I had, but it's interesting. But this album certainly has a theme
Yeah.
to it, which I think is I think it's going to be a nice milestone, something that I can put out and be proud of, and mentally leave a lot of the negative things on this record, if that
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. Make it a bookend. Make it a
Therapeutic.
bookend for that phase of life, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. You know, it was a really, really strange time.
Yeah.
You know, I'm gonna look back at it.
Now, out of all of the songs that you put in your live set, which songs are A, your favorite, and B, which songs get the best audience reaction?
Of our songs,
Yeah.
so we have a new one. We have 2 new ones actually. There's one called Down, which is kind of like an anthem for getting pissed, almost. And it was just kind of saying like, yeah, kind of saying, oh, I've tried to kind of, I said I'd stop this kind of thing, but like it's here we are. Well, let's just ride it till the wheels come off, kind of vibe, you know. And then there's another song called Snakes, which is about said German ex-girlfriend, and just kind of how that all ended. And that's really, I really like that song. But then obviously that song's off the other album, like Dear Elizabeth, for example. Like wherever we go, people know that song now, which is really strange. You know, if anyone knows one song of ours, it'd be that one.
Yeah.
People, and I get people from all over saying that they love that. I had a guy message me like, "Oh, my granddaughter's just been born and she's called Elizabeth, and we listened to this song." I was like, "Dude, like, do you listen to the lyrics at all? Like, what the hell?"
Yeah, it's not quite a birth song.
Yeah, there's a Trouble again. That's kind of like a bit of a meaty riff to
Yeah.
a degree. So there's a handful, but I think it's off the album. It's the ones that you'd expect.
Yeah. Yeah.
There is some like fan favorites which we don't really play, but some of them we've never even played live either. So
Yeah. Yeah. Fantastic stuff. And I mean, obviously, between now and November allows a lot of time for touring. How's your touring schedule looking for the next few months and into the later parts of the year?
No, well, hopefully we are going to Spain in May. That'd be nice. A nice breakaway. I think it's only 8 shows, and then come back, and then obviously tie this release into our European run, which is about 2.5 weeks at
Wow.
starting November 15th, I think. I could be wrong there, but yeah, it's I mean November 10th. So that's going to be exciting, and we've had so many messages off the back of doing the blues caravan about, oh, when you're coming back over and when you're gonna come. So it's and finding a reputable agent proved harder than you might have imagined, because there's people who just weren't taking on artists, and we didn't want to go over and just play pubs.
Yeah.
We wanted to go and play venues, and so we're going to see how that pans out. Obviously 3 years is a long time to not release anything. However, we have been busy within that time, and it's just life
Yeah.
again gets in the way. And I remember being a fan of many musical artists as a kid, and they would jump on Facebook and talk about the issues and the troubles with labels and how the music industry works. And now I'm old enough and uh, in that environment, I can certainly see, where they were coming from at that particular time. So, I'm still young. I'm 29. We've got hopefully many, many more years ahead of just playing tunes, and we want to kind of cross over, find that slightly younger demographic as well with our music. When we've played these festivals, a lot of the younger people that are there are really into it,
Yeah.
but not necessarily when you're going over and playing certain events or tours in Germany,
Yeah.
perhaps. There's
Yeah.
a certain demographic where,
Yeah. You're paired with an audience that
yeah,
you have very little control over initially, I guess.
of course, and I mean we're delighted to have been included in that. I mean, even in the scene in the UK, we are super grateful to anybody who buys a CD. I'm just happy we sold one, let alone the hundreds that we've gone through. So I'm grateful for it all. However, from a business point of view, to target the younger audience, not only do they spend the money on the records and the merch, it's the longevity of who you're selling to. A lot of the, you got like the blues police, as we call them. People are like, that's not blues. But we had a guy walk out of a show recently. I did like an acoustic gig, and he made it out of an hour and a half. He made it to an hour and 15 minutes. And I was told when we got there, he was like, this guy's a purist, blues purist. And I was like, what is he doing coming to this gig then? Well, why, like that's not on me. Like,
Yeah.
and I said that on the stage. Well, not, I didn't directly call him out, but I just said, like, this is not a blues gig. We kind of fell into that blues scene.
Mm.
And I think if you can kind of take a little bit of humor with it and just kind of like, well, here we are.
Mm.
We've been well received enough to stay here
Yeah.
and successful enough to keep going. So we're doing something right in that regard. But we certainly are interested in finding that crossover. Just I think as a business point of view, it makes sense. You want to target, but that doesn't mean to say we are writing music and changing who we are.
To adapt.
Yeah, we're malleable enough to be able to tap into other genres and sounds without changing who we are as a as an artist.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. So when we talk about live shows, I mean, is there a favorite live show that you've played? Is there one that stood out for one reason or another, just as being a I can't believe I'm here moment?
There was quite a few on the Blues Caravan actually. We played a festival in the Netherlands. It was like 5 or 6 thousand people in this tent, which was wild. I think that was the most people I'd ever played to. But just preceding that, there was a hometown show, called the venue out, and it was. I mean, we'd oversold it. It was rammed, and I think it was like 280 people. We packed into this little room, and I remember about 5 years before then, I was playing the same venue, and they used to host weekly gigs and it was kind of wasn't necessarily a pay to play as such, but you get put on the bill and you would invite um, your friends, your mum, you know,
Yeah.
more or less for like touring artists who didn't necessarily have a support, um, but weren't going to bring in many people, so they'd have 4 people on this bill or whatever. I mean, I've got all the posters in my room still. I saved them all, and I remember being outside having a cigarette at the time, and this guy walked past me who I used to know from the open mic circuit, and he said, "The best thing you can do is write your own music. I don't know why you've not started writing your own music." By which point I had, but I'd just not seen him for a year or two, and so I invited him. He was an old friend, and I invited him to the show. I was like, you know, I was like, "Do you remember saying that?" And he was like, "No." I was like, "Well, that always stuck in my mind." And we're back at the same venue, you know, 5, 6 years later, and we've sold it out, and it's our songs. And but I brought him along. I was like, not just for that reason, of course, but yeah, I think he actually reached out for a ticket, and I was like, "Yeah, come through." But we had that conversation, so it was kind of like, you know, a point in time where it kind of inspired me to do that. So that was kind of one of those shows. There's been a handful. The Chris Barris one in Manchester Academy too was really cool. Yeah, there's been a few, and I played with the Jared James Nichols recently, and that
Oh,
was cool because
wonderful.
I watch him on Instagram like every day. So
Yeah, yeah.
like to play his gold top and talk about amps and nerd out and stuff, and he is tall.
Yeah,
He is like a big dude, you know. Like, I thought I was big, but he's like
yeah,
muscly as well. He's like hugging a rock.
yeah.
He's a huge.
Well, he's a fantastic player too. I mean, he's an incredible player. So,
Mhm.
if we go back, I mean, that first acoustic guitar that you were given, have you still
Mhm.
got it?
No. Oh, no, I don't think so. Um, it was like a Costco. I'm sure you have Costco in
Yeah, yeah,
Australia.
yeah,
Yeah, it was like a Costco kind of acoustic, classical with a huge neck on it. And I remember getting them, and there was two, and my dad and my uncle we just kind of took them off us at Christmas and started jamming between the pair of them. And I
yeah.
was like, oh, hell, you know. Um, And I remember that the day after, my uncle had came round and was like, "Hang on, I can play this. Let me show you what I've written." And it was like, "Do do do do," and they were like, "Yeah, really good," you know. Um, but that was yeah, that's long gone, unfortunately. I have one that was it was a mini Stratocaster, which um, is kind of crazy because I've just had an endorsement with Fender, and they're sending me 2 guitars, one of them being a Strat. So that's kind of a full circle moment to have one from them. So.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up too, because I mean, I'm fascinated by your tone and what you play, and you've obviously just answered that slightly for me. But you know, the first guitar that you really fell in love with, what brand or what model was it?
That was a Epiphone Les Paul, and then, again later I ended up working with Gibson, and that again was a dream come true, and to kind of be on their artist roster, you know, as I still am. But that was an Epiphone Les Paul. It was in it was like translucent blue,
Mhm.
and I remember picking it out, and it was £399, and sorry, I tell a lie, it was 400 and some odd, and there was between that and a black one, and because everyone had gold tops and
Yeah,
like sunbursts, and I figured that out from a young age. And Slash in the '92 Tokyo Guns N' Roses concert, he finishes with Paradise City, but he has his black Les Paul, which is just a standard. But to me,
yeah.
that was like, oh shit, this is cool. So it was between that and the blue one, and my mum was like, the blue one's nice, so let's get that one. So I was like, okay, and I loved it, and that came everywhere with me, you know. And then after that, I was got a Les Paul Studio, which was my first Gibson, and like the first Gibson for any guitar player is a monumental moment in your life. And then yeah, just kind of collected them over the years and sold a bunch to buy more. And I've gone through cycles of instruments, and in fact, since the last time we released anything, there's only one that stayed. All
Right.
the others,
Oh,
yeah.
wow.
Just because I go through phases of, I mean, I used to have two of the same guitar because I was so precious about it. Like, what was if I lost it? But then I was like, I've got £4,500 sitting in my dining room floor here, not
Yeah,
being used.
yeah,
So then I put that towards another instrument that inspired me to want to play, and yeah, I've got in contact with Fender, and obviously they're going to send me two, which I'm delighted about. So I kind of sold off a bunch. I was like, I don't need all of these.
mm.
So I have when they turn up, I'll have four. So that's all I have, which isn't a lot for most guitar players. So
No, no, it's not. But you've picked your arsenal correctly. I think what you have there obviously suits a purpose and a feel and a mood, and I think that's very important too for any guitarist is to be comfortable in what they have.
you've got to feel inspired, with it. When you pick up an instrument, I play differently on like a Telecaster than I would do my 345, for example.
Yeah,
So you do find inspiration in the shape of it,
yeah,
or the overall sound. So yeah.
absolutely. And the connection with Fender, was that something that they reached out to you with, or was it something that you sort of went, "Hey, I want to try something"?
Yeah, I'd gone to them, and I'd I'd, I'd spoken to, because we have like endorsements with like Orange amps, so we were using those for a very, very long time. Still do occasionally, but I just kind of chop and change my amp heads. And I used to run like 2 or 3 amps at a time, so it was a bit too much. So just when we're traveling to gigs, especially if we haven't got a van, I can only take 1 amp, so it'd just be whatever's at the time. But I reached out to Fender because they'd released a model. Um, it was a Vintera 2, like a blonde Telecaster, but it had a maple neck. So I reached out to them and said, "Can you sell me one of those? But can you also give me an American rosewood neck?
Yeah,
I want it to look like Robin Ford's Telecaster. It's
yeah.
kind of like the Mike Bloomfield Telecaster." And they're like, "Yeah, we can do that." And I mean, the artist price on it was like ridiculously cheap. I
Yeah.
was like,
Oh
"Really?"
wow.
Um, so I just I remember I was at the shopping mall at the time, and my partner was shopping. I was emailing, and I was like, "How much would it be to get this in a custom shop model?" And they were like, "Oh, we can do this for X amount." And I was like, "No shit." I was like, "Right, I'll take two." And um, that was it. And I
Yeah.
just yeah, but I have a contact for the guy in the UK, but he had moved on, and believe it or not, I guessed the email of the head guy just
Oh,
because of the format of the email. I knew his
yeah.
name, so I guessed the email and wrote him an email. And he was like, "Yeah, what do you need?" I was like, "Man, this is the best day ever." So, but obviously to him, he looked like I already had his email and I knew what I was on about, but I just guessed it. And
Yeah.
I'm assuming he's heard the music. I don't know, but at this point, I don't care. Like it was a dream come true. So,
Yeah.
so they're making them custom colors for me. So I'm excited for that.
Brilliant, 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 brilliant stuff. Look, you've been so generous with your time with us here
No,
today
man,
at the
sure.
Rockpit. It's been an absolutely wonderful chat, and based on the Just a Name album, really excited to see what's next for yourself and the band. And hopefully, Sean will organise getting you out to Australia at some stage to do some showcase.
And that'd be the dream. We keep saying it, and if we ever got the opportunity for like Byron Bay Blues Fest kind of thing, or
Yeah,
anything.
yeah,
I'm scared of flying, but I'll put that in a box for 22 hours, just if it means we can go and play, and I can finally hold a koala as well. I'd be buzzing to hold one of those. So yeah,
yeah,
that's what we're looking forward to.
yeah.
So
No, I think you guys would be absolutely perfect for Blues Fest and even their sideshow showcases. It'd be a great way to introduce Australia to you, outside of hopefully what this does for you. But
oh, man,
actually, look,
thank you for your time. Thanks, man.
it's been amazing talking to you, and let's please stay in touch. And if
Yeah, no,
not
of course, man.
directly
But
through
thank you.
Sean,
Thank you also for your time. I know you're very busy, and apologies I had trouble with the Zoom and the puppy this morning.
it's all good.
But
It's all good. It's all good. I've been through worse. It's not an issue whatsoever. But for those that are watching and want to know more about you, where do we find you and where do we buy your wares?
sure. So ashleysherlock.com is our website. I believe Sean's kind of revamping. Yeah, I'm terrible with the internet. So much so I tried to print off a set list the other day, and the sheet came out blank. So I don't tend to do anything on the internet. I do the Instagrams and Facebook because I can do that from the phone. But yeah, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Spotify, all of those things. So
Yeah, yeah, fantastic. All right, Ashley Sherlock, thank you so much for your time again. We look
thanks,
forward
buddy.
to more from you in 2026, and it's been an absolute pleasure to spend an hour with you, my friend.
Good man. Cheers for your time, dude. See you
No
soon.
worries. Take care. See you
Bye
soon.
bye. Bye bye.